here's the story today in the Washington Post I want to tell you all about. Meet the woman behind Libs of TikTok secretly fueling the right's outrage machine, by a figure that some of you may have heard of. She's not famous, but she's certainly infamous in media circles, a Miss Taylor Lorenz, who is, I believe, roughly my contemporary. Clay's a little older, but roughly my... roughly.
You make it sound like I'm 74.
I got to get in a shot where I can. Roughly my contemporary, Ms. Lorenz. So here we are seeing this piece on Libs of TikTok. And before you say, Buck, Clay, what percentage of our audience do you think is on TikTok? I'd say less than 1%, right? You think that's fair?
I'm not even on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
I don't post, but I have a TikTok. Like, I follow some TikTok accounts because I'm mostly cooking of meat and some fitness tips, but also like steak. There's all these like literally MEAT TikTok, where you get to see people making Wagyus and, the expensive meat that you'll be buying me when Hunter Biden doesn't actually get prosecuted.
No, I don't believe I have ever been on TikTok. So no, I'm not. I'm not on it, the idea that very many of our listeners, I think, would be on it. Now, there may be some parents out there that are on it to help monitor what their kids are seeing. So that maybe there's more than we're thinking.
So here's how the ecosystem works, everybody, because this goes all the way up to the top. Meaning this goes all the way up to the Washington Post, the Jeff Bezos billionaire-owned Washington Post, going after this one account. And here's why. I'll actually read you from a little bit of this piece so you understand why they're so upset about it. On March 8th, a Twitter account called, it's also on Twitter, to be fair. It started on TikTok, and now it's on multiple platforms, so it has additional reach. Called Libs of TikTok, posted a video of a woman teaching sex education to children in Kentucky, calling the woman in the video a predator. The next evening, the same clip was featured on Laura Ingram's Fox News program, prompting the host to ask, when did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals? Libs of TikTok reposts a stream of TikTok videos and social media posts, primarily from LGBTQ plus people, often including incendiary framing designed to generate outrage. Videos shared from the account quickly find their way to the most influential names in right-wing media. Okay, so that's from the start of the post. We'll get to the doxing of this woman in a second. But, Clay, it is fair to say, Libs of TikTok, you follow it, I follow it, and now it's on multiple social media platforms, so you don't even have to have a TikTok account. But the stuff that it shows, it just takes what people who are leftists, who announce their pronouns, who I can't even really you have to sort of see some of this. I mean, there are people that truly look like they're in need of tremendous psychological help, but then they'll announce that they're a kindergarten teacher. They have... you have to see it. I mean, how do I describe this so people could really understand? These people, some of them look insane.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is these are mostly videos that people are shooting of themselves, sharing their opinions. And what Libs of TikTok does is collate these videos and share them with an audience that's different than the audience that might have otherwise been consuming them, right? Because these are basically far left-wing people usually talking to other far left-wing people. And Libs of TikTok shines a light on what that universe is actually discussing.
It's almost like just retweeting, if you understand in the Twitterverse how that stuff works. They're just resharing content that already exists. It's not cutting in a way that's unfair to the content. It's just, here's what this individual thinks. And this is why this has become so contentious. Because the left, with the whole don't say gay bill, the parental rights in education law, in fact, that is now the law of the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis fighting with Disney, all these issues that started to go against the activist LGBTQ plus groups, the activist groups that push much of this content, this ideology. And the storyline kept being, nobody really wants to indoctrinate your kids into gender identity, right? Nobody wants to tell your 5-year-old about pansexuality. That's just a right-wing lie. Oh, Libs of TikTok shares accounts from people who are saying crazy stuff about how they actually do want to teach your
teachers,
5 and they're teachers. Right. That's so there are teachers, and this is what's gotten it so much attention. And yes, some of the content is shared on, Tucker's show on Fox, Laura's show, different shows on Fox. We'll talk about some of it here on this show. So this became a big problem for the propaganda machine of the left because their storyline is the right's lying. Nobody wants to groom children or to sexually indoctrinate young children into these gender identity theories at a very young age. No one wants to do that, except for all these accounts of people who are teachers who are saying that that's exactly what they want to do. So what does the Washington Post do? They have Taylor Lorenz find the anonymous individual behind the Libs of TikTok account to try to cut off this content pipeline, in essence, from the big shows, from the national conversation. She showed up, Clay, of course,
this is a reporter at the Washington Post, for people who don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. She showed up at the family members of the anonymous Libs of TikTok woman to ask them questions. This is pure intimidation. Everybody in journalism knows it, but this is what the left does. Remember when they had CNN showing up to some woman who was like clicked on a Russian Facebook, account or something about the election, and they're on her front lawn asking her questions like she's a bad person? They destroy everyday people to make a political point.
Remember when they showed up for people who were donating like $50 to to Kyle Rittenhouse's legal defense fund? They showed up knocking on the door asking, why did you donate $50 to Kyle Rittenhouse's defense, doxing these people? That's a word that a lot of people are not going to be familiar with that we should probably explain, Buck. The concept of doxing, which is you are otherwise a normal person, right? Like you have your normal life, and you may decide to donate $50 to Kyle Rittenhouse. And you may do it under your own name, not thinking, hey, one of the largest media outlets in the world is going to show up at my house and write an entire article about the $50 donation that I've made. You may run an anonymous account that becomes popular, but have a normal life otherwise, and not anticipate that you're going to be investigated as if you're committing some sort of crime.
And look at how easy it is for them to. Let's say you're Bob the accountant, and Bob the accountant gave $50 to the Rittenhouse Defense Fund. By the way, the now exonerated Kyle Rittenhouse. So worth pointing out, Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent, found innocent in a court of law, or not guilty, but effectively innocent because it was a self-defense case, and it was self-defense. It wasn't like they lacked evidence to understand what had happened. They knew exactly what happened. But let's say you're Bob the accountant, and the Washington Post prints your name, your company, your address, and now all of a sudden your boss, the chief accountant, is getting death threat emails, is getting, how could you employ this person? And they'll say, oh, well, it's a free company. It's a company, it's a private company, can do what it wants. Yeah, so you get fired. So you didn't do anything wrong, but your boss freaks out and you get fired. They do this to send a message. They do this because, sure, it's one person, right? But that one person could be anyone, which is why it is so impactful, which is why this is so important to the leftist machinery of propaganda and of making sure that people stay within the prescribed political boundaries. Because, Clay, there are very few, we do political commentary, right? So if someone's going to come at us like fair game, there are very few people whose companies would withstand even a short but aggressive political campaign to have them fired. Very few places would say it's so worth having, Susie scanning the groceries at our Quickie Mart or whatever, that we're going to keep her even though there are 100 emails saying she should be fired because of this thing. Very few places. So this is a silencing mechanism, right? Now, they could say that the Libs of TikTok account is a public person, but I would want to know, well, what are the rules now for any kind of anonymity when it comes to media? Who do they go after? Who do they not? What accounts do they unveil? What accounts do they keep secret? And why talk to her parents? What does that have to do with anything?
It's a method. Well, and we should mention that the Washington Post reporter who is doing all of this was within the last month on MSNBC crying over the fact that people were saying mean things about her online, and nobody should have to ever deal with this. I think we have some audio.
Here's how she discusses the situation of bullying online.
My cell phone number getting out there, people calling, people harassing my family members, stalking me, like all of that is incredibly terrifying and invasive. And it's bled out into the physical world too, which is even more terrifying, right? But To me, I think what especially the media needs to understand about this in terms of protecting their own reporters is this is just a tool. Like, harassment is a tool to kind of discredit and silence journalists, and the right-wing media plays along with it.
So she wants special protection for journalists to be able to ruin anyone's life that they choose. We're supposed to lay off of her, and here she is, because she gets even more sad over this. This is a woman who actively tries to ruin people's lives for her profession, makes that choice. Here she is when she gets a little heat her way.
They'll threaten children. They'll threaten my parents. I've had to remove every single social tie. I had severe PTSD from this. I contemplated suicide. It got really bad. You feel like any little piece of information that gets out on you will be used by the worst people on the internet to destroy your life. And it's so isolating.
And terrifying.
It's horrifying. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
It's overwhelming. It's really hard.
Oh, stop. She is the worst person on the internet. Buck, she has a multi-billion-dollar media corporation backing up her investigation of a random anonymous account on social media. The direct result of what she's whining about, she's showing up at somebody's mom and dad's house, knocking on the door, trying to out them, trying to dox who is running this account because she disagrees with their politics. And then she's going to break down in crocodile tears on MSNBC and talk about how unfair the world is. Look, you're in the game. We're in the game, Buck. If one of us, imagine the reaction if one of us went on Fox News and we were like, sometimes people say really mean things to me on the internet, and we would be like, people rightly would mock and ridicule us to the ends of the earth. This is the world in which we choose to live. You can't argue for different standards for yourself because your feelings are upset while you're trying to destroy other people's lives like she is.
And I would just want everyone to know that the journalistic establishment, even though they're aware of how grotesque this is at some level, to go after, and this is, by the way, she's not a first offender. She's done this to other people. She goes out. She was trying to get Kellyanne Conway's, I think at the time, 14-year-old daughter to give her quotes about the fighting between George Conway and Kellyanne Conway. She's horrible, okay?
Yeah.
She's a person of incredibly poor judgment who does destroy people, who does ruin people's lives. Clearly, she's aware of how damaging it can be to have the media focused in on you and sharing details about you, and she makes a career of that anyway. So there's really, I think she's a sociopath. I really mean that. I think there's something wrong with her. But understand that the Democrat journalistic establishment wants people like this out there. They want to pretend that the people who work for Media Matters, which is extensively quoted in this piece, by the way.
Of course.
Media Matters is one of the worst organizations in America, and anyone who draws a paycheck from it should be ashamed. All they do is try to destroy people by being dishonest and engaging in propaganda. They are, to borrow from Bill O'Reilly, smear merchants. That's all they do, right? There are these entities, though, that if you're a columnist at the New York Times and you're a columnist at the Washington Post, you view them almost as like your mafia muscle. You want someone out there keeping all the peasants in line. Step out of line. Maybe, it's not Paul Krugman or Tom Friedman that's going to do the doxing, but Taylor Lorenz at the Washington Post will handle that for them. They like this. Don't forget it. They stand behind this quietly. Otherwise, they could shut this crap down in a second. It's because the left has... We haven't even gotten into the fact that, Clay, why is it... Maybe we'll come back to this. Why is Libs of TikTok so damaging to them? Why does it, if it were just fringe, if it weren't something that actually represented a broader swath of left-wing opinion, it wouldn't matter, right?
And also if it wasn't being effective. That's
right.
The thing. That's why
they're
coming
it's
after them
effective
because
it's
so effective.
It's real. Because they do have a problem with. Because they do have a problem with. Because